You're working on it. And then this is the, this will be the channel for a DM space Neg space X is where this class is slotted to go. So hopefully that will all work. Although if you're here today, then watching it again will just be optional. Self-torture. Optional self-torture to watch the same lecture twice. We do want to spend today talking about negative doubles, and your handout has a couple of tables on it, but they're not quite as daunting as
last week's.
As all of the responses and rebids after a takeout double. But you know, I would say, and you may have seen this for those of you who have at some point picked up my convention priority list. Negative doubles are one of the most important things you can play. If you only play a handful of conventions along with statement and transfers and a couple other things, I think negative doubles is right there. And negative doubles have actually been around a very long time. You know, it used to be once upon a time, if you opened the bidding and there was an overcall and responder doubled, that was a penalty double. And it didn't take people too long to figure out that that didn't have a whole lot of use. Because we're not that interested in penalizing contracts at the 1 or 2 level. So, so the idea was that we give up penalty double there so that you can show a whole bunch of other hand types and hopefully find your best fit. It wasn't originally called negative double. It was originally called, if you care, this is just your historical fun fact, it was called Sputnik. So it won't shock you that this goes back to, supposedly people had been dabbling with this as long ago as the late 1930s, but it was popularized, at least at the tournament level, by Roth Stone, a well-known old school bridge partnership in 1957. And so they called it Sputnik. So I guess it was fitting for the times. And frankly, we might as well call it Sputnik because negative isn't really the best description anyhow, right? I mean, it's kind of weird that we call it negative double. Makes it sound like you don't have any values in your hands. So yeah, so if you want, you can bust that out sometime. If anybody asks about if you make a negative double and anybody asks, tell them you're playing Sputnik. See how they respond to that.
Not sure I know how to spell Sputnik.
As far as the details of using your negative double, easiest thing to keep in mind, because one of two things happens here with a lot of our doubles. Either people forget to use them when they could, or they use them in situations that don't apply. So, applying it everywhere or applying it nowhere, or not in enough places. So, and a number of doubles are unique to certain positions at the table make certain kinds of doubles. We'll be talking about support doubles at some point. Two of those. We'll be talking about support doubles here later on in the class, not today, but next time or the week after, remember. And so a negative double is made by only one person at the table, and that's responded. Right? So the conditions for a negative double, only made by responder. Nobody else at the table can make a negative double, at least not in the classic sense of how we define it. There must have been a suit overcall. So your partner has opened, and your right-hand opponent has overcalled with a suit. In other words, if the opponent's overcall a no trump, double is no longer negative. This is actually one of the few situations where double is still penalty. Like this, one club, one note, double. You can't have a negative double without a suit. So one club, one of any suit, the negative double would be on. One club or one of any suit with a no trump overcall, double is penalty. Double is usually 10 plus points, and it just says, partner, that this is our hand. They may be in trouble because you open and I have like invitational or better values, and so the no trump overcall is about to catch a dummy with nothing in it. And so that's why double must remain penalty. Doesn't mean that you are required to penalize anything they bid. Sometimes they find a place to run out to that you're not that excited about doubling for penalty at a low level. But initially, it's penalty oriented. So we need an opening bid from partner in the opening seat. We need a suit overcall. And then a lot of times, we have, what responder has, keep in mind that the negative double is unlimited. It can be any number of points. But it might, in a lot of situations, deny enough points to be able to make a free bid, like here, at the 2 level. Either you don't have a good enough hand point-wise to freely bid a suit, or you don't have a long suit, or both, right? So for example, like maybe you actually have an invitational or better hand, and you have 4 hearts, but you wouldn't freely bid as 2 hearts there because that would promise at least 5. So, maybe you have extra values, but you don't have a long suit, or maybe the other way around, right? Maybe you have a 5-card heart suit, and you'd really like for partner to know that you have 5 of them, but you can't bid 2 hearts because you'd be showing 10 or more points, and you may only have 7 or 8, which would be enough to compete, but not enough for the free bid. And so, the idea here is we're using this to try and find our best fit. And the example that I always like to present to people, because I think if you see what you can do and what you can't, depending on whether or not you have this interference, a very typical hand might be something like this. So here you have 9 high card points, a generally balanced hand, right? Your long suits are your 2 4-card suits. You've got king, jack, 4th of hearts, and ace, 4th of diamonds. And then what if the auction starts just as we see it over here, with 1 club by partner and 1 spade? Now, if this person on your right had kept their mouth shut, you would have responded a heart, right? You would have bid your 4-card major. Well, now we have this overcall, and that complicates things, right? Because your bid was taken away. The space to make the bid you wanted to make was taken away. And while your partner probably doesn't have 5 hearts because of the club opening, we could very easily have a 4-4 heart fit, and we don't want to miss it, right? So this is where the negative double becomes really critical, especially when we're playing match point pairs like this. And even if we have a good fit in a minor, we don't want to miss a fit in a major. I mean, you think about it. What else makes sense with this hand, right? You're not strong enough for a free bid at the 2 level, and you don't have a 5-card suit anyhow. I don't think you would want to raise partner's clubs with only jack third, right? Because the opener hasn't promised particular length in clubs. Usually they have 4 or more, but this could have been a 1-club opening on a 3-card suit. And you'd hate to put partner in a 3-3 fit, and you're probably not that excited about putting partner in a 4-3 fit, even if it's 4 clubs, right? So the negative double is, I mean, this is truly your most flexible, useful tool. And when you're minimal like this, you know, in that kind of 6 to 9 point range, where you're probably not really planning on inviting a game, the idea is to get to your best spot. And so if your partner has a minimum opening, you're probably going to pass. You have a plan for this hand, right? You're probably going to pass whatever partner does next. If partner bids 2 hearts, great. We have a heart fit, but you're not quite invitational. You probably pass 2 hearts. If partner rebids clubs, now it is a longer suit, and you're happy to table this dummy for clubs, right?
Is this considered the negative double at the second level because spades were bid? Is it for me or for you to be on the second level?
Well, I mean, in this particular situation, and in most situations, even at the lower level, you know, your partner's probably going to be responding at the 2 level, right? So that's what you're considering, and I know the handout says, you know, it refers to the level of the overcall, 1 level, 2 level, 3 level, but really a better way to consider it is at what level might your partner have to bid, right? So, like, if we get a club, a heart overcall, your partner might be able to come back with 1 spade if you make a negative double, right? Whereas when we get a 1 spade overcall, with spades being the boss suit, unless partner is going to rebid 1 no trump, any suit they bid, they're going to have to go to the 2 level. So that's really the consideration here, is if you're deciding whether you're good enough, and you know what you're getting at is the top table on the handout, you know, depending on the level of interference, you know, where are you forcing partner? You know, how high are you forcing partner to bid? You know, you might be forcing partner to go to another level, particularly when the opponents are getting into the auction with the spade suit. Right?
So if you have 6, 7, but really good, you know, distribution, you can't make your partner.
You might, you know. Again, I mean, this gets to be sort of a now or never situation. So, you know, take this same hand here. In fact, I'll tell you what, we'll take away both jacks. And we'll reduce you to just a 7-point hand. And partner opens a club and there's a spade open. All right, now you only have 7 points. Would you make a negative double?
Yes.
I think you should. I mean, I think it's a now or never situation, right? Because if the opponents start raising spades and you don't get into the auction now, and the getting's cheap now, right? Because you can get in with double.
Right.
And whatever partner bids, they don't have to go higher than the 2 level, right? So, you know, even with a fairly minimal hand, I think I'd be in here. Now, if it gets to be much less than that, it would be reasonable to pass. You know, would you be making a negative double with a 6 count? If your ace of diamonds is the king of diamonds, do you still make a negative double? You know, maybe you're stretching a little bit because you know partner is probably coming back at the 2 level, or like I said, partner might rebid 1 no. But you know, now you want to bring in other considerations like vulnerability and things like that. Crummy 6 counts, it is okay to pass. Even if it was a hand you would have responded, right? You're not absolutely compelled to make your negative double. Let's say this is your hand. Partner opens a club and it goes pass. Would you respond with this hand? I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
It's a minimum response, but you'd squeak out a heart and then hopefully never have to bid again, right? With the spade overcall, are you still, but yeah, I mean, and again, you only have 1 reasonable bid with this hand, and that would be the negative double. Are you still doing it with just 2 kings? Maybe favorable vulnerability. I mean, you are allowed to make a judgment call here. But once there's been an overcall, just because you have 6 points does not mean you are absolutely compelled to say something. So it would be reasonable to pass. And if my 2 kings were a couple of scattered queens and jacks, I think I would definitely pass, because that's not as attractive of a hand.
coincidental that the unbid suits are 4-4? Or if you move a diamond,
Nothing is a coincidence. This lecture is planned.
what if you move a diamond, that little baby diamond, up to the spade line? Then what, is that
Little
still
baby
okay?
diamond- Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about this.
Oh, we are, okay.
Yeah.
Back, it doesn't matter, but the opener, do they need to,
That doesn't matter.
be a little cautious? I mean, if they just get excited, they've got the two other suits and they've got opening.
Well, we'll
points.
get into openers follow-up bids.
Okay.
Because when you respond to that negative double, you also get an opportunity to let partner know whether you are in the minimum opening category or whether you have a little better hand or whether you have a game forcing hand. So yeah,
So when you cheat a little bit, then it makes it harder if they're bidding.
yeah, but
That's okay.
I mean, really, if we're talking about 6 points versus 7 points kind of thing, I mean, we're splitting hairs, and it's not that often that one jack in a suit somewhere is the difference maker. It could be, but as far as whether you have a making game or not, or whether you make your contract or not, whether you end up at the 2 level or the 3 level. Yeah, let's deal with this business of, first of all, how high are we making our negative doubles? And when we say, how high are your negative doubles, this is a matter of, through what level of interference by the opponents. And this is, if you've got your convention card, this is toward that upper left portion of the convention card in that box, where they're going to ask you negative doubles through blank. How high? I would recommend at an absolute minimum, 3 spades. My feeling is that's actually too low. And I would go higher than that. I would want a negative double really through at least 4 hearts. Because what happens if your partner opens a minor and you get a big 4 heart preempt on your right, and you are sitting there with opening values and 4 spades? Do you want your double to be penalty? Or do you want your double to say, partner, I have spades, but I can't freely bid this suit. I would hate to sell out to 4 hearts. I may not, even though I have a good hand, I may not even want a double 4 hearts for penalty if we are making 4 spades. So I think you want your doubles to be negative by responder through at least 4 hearts. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and Nancy, I don't know if you have our card here, but this is sort of comedy and sort of not. Doesn't our card say that?
Yes.
Negative doubles through infinity. I guess it's not really infinity because the bidding ladder does have a limit. And 7 no trump is a finite point on that ladder, right? So theoretically, there is no such thing as infinite bidding. I don't know, maybe with Ellie a little bit there's infinite bidding, but some people can't be stopped. And so that's kind of a joke, but it's actually not entirely a joke. And this actually comes from some material that Larry Cohen has put out.
Yeah.
And like I said, what he does is to make a point. And the point is really that as responder, your double is truthfully could be and should be intended as takeout oriented through as high as we can all bid. But of course, the higher the level of interference, the greater the likelihood that partner would just leave this double in and then it becomes penalty, right? Because any takeout double could be converted by partner to penalty if they pass. We don't want to do that at a lower level, right? We're not interested in converting when the negative double shows up at the 1 level or the 2 level or even the 3 level very often. But once they get in with some big preamps, and the reason that we do fill out something on this line in the card is that we do want a point, right? I mean, if we're not doing the infinity thing, which you don't have to do. But I mean, it's a very reasonable and still probably a good idea to have a clear point of demarcation in your partnerships. At what point does double stop being takeout oriented and it's just penalty oriented, right? So if our agreement is that we play negative doubles through 4 hearts and the auction proceeds 1 club, 4 spades, and you double there as responder, well, if our agreement is 4 hearts, here your double of 4 spades is penalty. It says, partner, I want to defend 4 spades double. Is your partner absolutely compelled to sit for that double? No, but generally if the double gets pulled, then that means your partner is interested in slam. What if your partner opened 1 club with a pretty darn good hand and like an 8-card club suit? Well, if you have values over there, partner might be interested in 6 clubs, right? May not need a whole lot from you. So, but may not be able to bid it unilaterally. So, for example, if partner were to pull that penalty double to 5 clubs, I would take a look at your hand and be seriously thinking about if 6 clubs has some play. And just because partner pulls your penalty double doesn't mean you are required to bid onto a slam, but it should definitely be a consideration. So this is why we want to have a point of demarcation. We'd ideally like